During 2019, Aspirations worked with some of the UK's largest organisations on projects to improve employment outcomes for those with autism. In this film, we look back at our showcase event, which shone a spotlight on our work to make this a business imperative.
So just to give you some of the context of all the disabled communities in the UK, the least likely to be employed is the autistic community. And as you're going to discover, there is a great talent hidden from the labour market. We all share the responsibility for removing the considerable barriers to entry into employment for those with neurodiverse needs.
All of these white lines are or were believed to have been autistic. Whether you believe that or you don't believe that, what is undoubted is that they changed the course of human thinking by thinking differently to those around them. Right now, business needs different thinking. And what you see here are the services that Aspirations deliver for their customers. And around the edge, the 4 objectives we help them with.
One of the key questions we're often asked is, where should organisations start?
Awareness drives appetite for change. There's no doubt that by just posting on social media, but also through the awareness raising workshops that we did, it has sparked all sorts of thinking from existing employees, from managers who never even thought about this before, either in the case of their existing employees, and they thought, oh my God, this is like spark up all sorts of thoughts, but equally, all sorts of roles that I now think this is a real good opportunity. However, get your narrative right. I have been to awareness training that wasn't led by Aspirations, good intentions by people that carried to me what I felt was actually a very harmful narrative. And I can only say that the feedback we had from the work that Nick did has been inspiring and positive. And Nick has a unique ability to talk to businesses in business language.
We find our awareness sessions are really kind of myth-busting. Is at the heart of it. There are kind of two objectives. One is myth-busting, and the other is actually empathy. How do we actually create a little bit of empathy in the room by trying to make the audience put the audience in the shoes of what it's like to be autistic?
I was lucky enough to have a conversation with a guy called Tim Wheeler, who actually kicked off the autism program in the US, Howard Watson, and I said to him, Tim, help me out here, how do I get this whole thing off the ground? And he said to me, to be honest, senior sponsorship is probably the biggest thing you can do, because once you've got the senior person behind you, everything else kind of falls into place. And by chance, our CEO up here, Jürgen, had quite recently attended a diversity and inclusion event externally where somebody had spoken about neurodiversity, and he'd expressed a curiosity about it, which he mentioned to our D&I manager, and he agreed to attend the first awareness workshop that Nick did in Chippenham at one of our rail sites, and not only went through the management training himself for a couple of hours. I remember, fresh off the train, having read about Greta Thunberg in the newspaper, but also stood up and did an opening speech to the employees at the employee awareness session, and then posted on our internal network about what he thought about it. And really, just his voice alone just helped to get a whole host of other business leaders engaged on the topic and willing to listen. I didn't expect to get such an enthusiastic response to our first awareness session that they flooded Jürgen's Yammer page, and we had to set up an internal autism network to allow that conversation to continue, just so that he didn't drown in the conversation.
Hi, my name is Sarah Mohammed Ross, and I'm one of the communications managers at First Date Investments. I attended a session with Aspirations today. It was an awareness session into neurodiversity, and I must confess I learned so much over the hour. We talk a lot about different types of diversity, and diversity of thought is sometimes a buzzword, but actually I wonder how much people really understand about that. So thanks so much to Nick and Gabriel, and we look forward to working together.
My name's Peter Hawkins and I'm a compliance officer here at First State, and I found the session really useful. It was an epiphany for me, and I think there's an enormous opportunity here for firms needing people with these skills. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Dryland. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer of First State Investments, and what I took away from that meeting was a real insight into the full spectrum, how it can be managed, and really it showed me the challenges that can be faced but also the benefits, and that's the sort of real takeaway for me, because there's always been a bit of a negative slant on things, and for me it was showing that actually how this can be a true benefit to any organisation. So I'm really looking forward to what the future brings in this space and actually see how First State Investments are going to take this forward. Thank you.
As you move beyond awareness, you have to consider the environment and management processes if you want to get the best from autistic talent.
Finn is going to talk to you today about his own journey into the labour market. It reminds me of a blog I read on medecoded.com, Helen Needham's website, where she talks about how sometimes wouldn't it be good if we all had a manual that says this is how to get the best of me in the workplace. I think Finn's well on the way to writing his own manual. I should probably shut up and hand over to Finn.
A little bit about me. So since being diagnosed with Asperger's around 3 years ago, and having looked quite a lot at university about essentially the nature of the job recruitment process, I came to the realization that as it currently stands, a lot of organisations and a lot of their processes aren't ready for me to bring my authentic self to work. So my story of Asperger's and employment really started when I graduated from Bath University last year. I got first in international management with Spanish, and as you can see on LinkedIn profiles for many people under the age of 25, most of them end up in consultancy, but I seem to end up in a slightly different role, so I joined an ice cream startup company called Oppo. There's only around 20 of us, and we operate across the UK and across Europe internationally. And even though I've been at Oppo for really 10 months, and this role that I occupy, the data analyst role, was new for the company at the time, it really took around at least 6 months for Oppo to begin to see the best of me. Any task that you have, there's the why are you doing it, what are you actually doing, how are you doing it, and when do you need to do it. And a neurotypical might say, I need 70% of the what. I don't need any percentage of the why. I need probably 50 to 60% of the how, and maybe I need 70% of the when. And I need 100% of each one of these components, because that gives me a full picture, and it actually enables me to fully visualize what I have to do to execute on it and actually to become specialized in it. So I can actually then not just replicate this task to the same standard each time, but actually to make it better each time. And ultimately, this is only kind of part of the kind of puzzle which I suppose a lot of atypical people have to face when they're in the work environment, because the other thing is actually the whole need of controlling your workspace and controlling your work environment means a very different thing from a neurotypical perspective. So at university, I never really had to consider this, because ultimately the whole idea is there was always a spare room that I could go into, and I would always have a bubble of focus in it. I would be able to go to it in essentially a quiet place. But at work, this bubble was essentially violated every minute of the day. So I would have people tapping me on the shoulder, I would have mugs being dropped in the background, and at my company in particular, we would often send samples of ice cream to buyers in these dry ice containers. And the sound of the masking tape being wrapped around that, it's like having someone reach into you and grab you by the ribcage and shake you. And it was only really when my line manager actually saw my reaction to this, how I was shaking like a leaf, did we actually then start having the conversation about I need to take control of this little workspace and this work environment. And ultimately it wasn't massive changes, this is the thing. It was often really small changes, like I bought phenomenal noise cancelling headphones. I moved my desk into the corner of the office, and as well, there was a really, really small change, but it was learning how to recalibrate. And the whole idea of recalibration for me in this kind of onslaught of kind of sensory overload was through the use of post-it notes. And one of the heads of the company, he's a big fan of Asana, which I'm sure every single person uses in this office, and some love it and some are probably sick of it. But it is a really useful goal-setting software if you know how to use it. But at the beginning, it just felt like a souping mess, and I would be, in the situation where I was spending longer and longer at work trying to tick off these tasks, which wouldn't affect the business whatsoever. But through actually having the conversation with my line manager about how I could then kind of take back this control of my workspace and work environment, I realised all I needed to do was to just write something down on a post-it note when it felt like the world was closing in around me. And that was just, okay, I need to do this next, or I just need to nudge myself slightly away from the sensory overload. And it seems bizarre to say that these really, really minor changes made me a more effective data analyst, but it did, and it made me a happier and healthier one. The final thing that I want to highlight is from the experiences of my line manager, who's now a very good friend of mine. There's been a gain from having someone with autism at Oppo. He has changed the way that he managed because of working with me to make him a better manager overall. He over-communicates more with his colleagues than he ever did before. He's more detail-oriented in the way that he works, from having seen how I work and how I deal with tasks. And as well, he's more plugged in now into the business because I'm over-communicating about what's happening with the teams that are affected by my work. And so he has to know how they're going to be affecting me. And that just makes him a better coordinator. And all of these behavioural changes, they cost nothing. They cost absolutely nothing. He has given me maybe an hour or two extra of his time per week. And if you think about how a startup of 20 or so people can make that much difference with the way that they've affected one person, just imagine what an organisation like Siemens or some of the organisations that you can represent with the amount of financial power that you have behind them. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I'd love to answer some of your questions. Thank you.
So the role that we were seeking for in this case was a digital degree apprenticeship. Okay, so one of the things that drew us to the role was because it was a degree apprenticeship, it was supported and it had a degree of kind of pastoral care built into the programme. It wasn't a traditional university degree, and that made us comfortable that along with the skill set meant that the role was very suitable. The way in which we targeted recruitment was to target geographically, using social media, using social profiling. We identified what we saw as key influences in the autism community. The example I'd use would be Alice Rowe, who wrote The Girl with the Curly Hair. So we were targeting parents of teenagers who were following on social media kind of autistic spokespeople, because you could draw a degree of influence that those people following those folk living within 20 miles of West Didsbury, where the opportunities were, might have teenage children looking for apprenticeship roles. We also worked with Aspiration's own network of kind of supportive organisations, and Jane from Autism Forward is here today. The candidate we sourced and placed into work was on a mentoring programme with Autism Forward and was kind of referred into the programme as a result of that network.
How do you make your recruitment process much more autism friendly? Because I imagine that whole structured process is really quite frightening for anyone who's thinking of applying for a job. So how do you practically change that?
Nick, do you want me to answer it, or do you want to answer? Because I know you're a lot more involved than me, but there's a number of things that we could do. So, for example, in this case, we did a targeted process, so we actually advertised in places where we believed that autistic people would be looking. Secondly, the information that we provided in both the advertisement but then linked to a website, I believe, had a much greater depth of information about the role, what it might be like to work for Siemens in it than our regular adverts. We did more preparation before the day with the candidates to allow them to feel much more comfortable about what they were expecting to experience. We changed the way that we assessed them. So, for example, we did do an interview, but we provided them with the interview questions beforehand so that they knew what they were likely to expect and had time to prepare their answers. We made some of the practical assessments. Ordinarily, we do a lovely team-based assessment that was around building bridges or something. We changed that so it was a work simulation event where they actually got to practically simulate something that they might be doing in the job. Anything I've forgotten?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit in a minute about role design as well, because we also really questioned what was the most important thing about the role, but I'll come on to that in just 2 seconds. The questions, the interviews were in the office, they were in a private, quiet space. What's interesting though is that they were quite formal, and actually, when we're going to talk a little bit about the interview experience workshops we did with Bath University, and the autistic students that we supported wanted formality. Their perception of what an interview was, they wanted to sit behind a desk, have a barrier between them and their interviewer, and have formal structure, whereas the interviewers wanted a more cosy fireside chat and to establish rapport. And it was a really interesting piece of learning for the employers who attended to see that actually, if your ambition is to get the best from the candidate and for the candidate to be at ease, then sometimes formality might be what they need rather than informality. Bad interview questions strike fear into all applicants, let alone those with autism. But fear of asking bad questions can stop employers asking any questions at all. How then could we create a safe space where employers can practice asking interview questions? Employers can practice communicating with those with autism. And what we did with Bath University in the Aspera ad Astra event that we hosted, we brought together 12 individuals from 4 employers, nationwide, BAE Systems, Siemens and Accenture, to interview 12 autistic undergraduates at Bath University in observed conditions. And for each of them to feed back on each other. The employers were going to be told that was a stupid question. The employers were going to be told when they didn't put someone at ease, when they didn't act in a way that got the best from the applicant. Similarly, the students would get some feedback in terms of how they performed, how they might answer questions better or in a way that would be more effective moving forward. And we had observers in every conversation, because very often, to the point made here earlier, people might not understand why the point was missed. And so those observers who could interpret those miscommunication moments could also give feedback to both students and employers on what had worked and what hadn't.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melanie Wortham. I'm a careers advisor at the University of Bath, and I lead on supporting our disabled students. I really wanted to share my thoughts on the Aspiration Interview Skills event. At Bath, we have a growing number of autistic students. It is a spectrum, and this means that they're a very diverse group of students who have some common challenges, but equally may have some specific individual challenges. They face some key career challenges, often not knowing their strengths and their skills, not knowing career options out there, finding it difficult to choose a specific job from a list of jobs. And they also suffer significant anxiety over applying for jobs and understanding and navigating sometimes quite complex recruitment processes. So how did we team up with Aspirations for this? Earlier this year, Nick proposed a potentially exciting solution to meet some of our student needs, and this would help students to develop their confidence in interview situations, whilst at the same time providing a unique opportunity for employers to consider best practice when recruiting neurodiverse graduates. It was potentially a win-win event. As a university, the event was incredibly successful. To see many students come from such low confidence levels in articulating their skills and their strengths to successfully communicating with employers and giving some great examples to demonstrate specific competencies. This was a real privilege to observe. Thank you.